Hi guys, so in this really quick video, we're going to now talk about getting CrushFTP onto your Tailscale network. Now, this is going to be kind of a follow-up to the previous video I just made about CrushFTP, and that we needed to give the container its own IP address in order for it to even work on Unraid properly, right? Assuming, like I said, you're not trying to use your public IP address to do it, you're trying to just have it running internal, so like you just need your internal devices doing this thing, right? Now we want to get CrushFTP to actually be on our Tailscale network instead. Okay, so what do we do? All right, so first thing I'm going to do, right, is I'm going to assume, all right, that you guys follow the previous video, right, and you already have your what's the word I'm looking for, right? You can already access your container in order to do the changes and stuff you need to do, right? So let's go ahead. I'm gonna just go ahead and jump into this IP address real quick. All right, and then I do believe for demonstration purposes, right, I didn't change the default CrushAdmin password, which should be CrushAdmin and then password. And remember, this is CrushFTP 11. Excuse me. Okay, don't want to save that. All right, so now what we're going to do is, this is a prerequisite you have to do before you try to move it over to the container. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click over here, and as you can see, this is going to be a lookup. Okay, like I mentioned in my previous video, right, I haven't had luck with this. As you can see, it's, well, you can't see it, right, because I blocked it out, obviously, but it's currently at lookup it's bringing up our public IP address. So we need to change that to be manual. Now, it's going to be on the Tailscale container network, right? And the Tailscales Sidecar container is the one that's actually going to have the IP address. And if you remember from the, especially what I mentioned in the previous video, right? CrushFTP by design will not allow you to tell it or give it an IP address that it does not believe it's using. So for example, like I said before, even though, like, you know, it's a Docker container in bridge mode on the Unraid server, it refuses to use the Unraid server's IP address. It'll reject it. So the way we're going to get around that, okay, is we're going to change this to 0000. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so 4 zeros, right? You're going to change this to 0000 for FTP, and as a failsafe, because we don't want to get knocked off of the container, right? Because once you make this changes, obviously, I believe it does have a session thing, so like it'll still keep you connected. But if like anything happens, like let's say it just so happens that you make this change and immediately like something goes wrong where like your server cuts off or something, and that change is like obviously permanent, then you're kind of shit out of luck, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to leave HTTP alone, and what we're going to do is we're going to change HTTPS to be the 0000 as well, right? Because that's what we're going to use to access it once we know it's working on our Tailscale network. I recommend doing it this way. If you want to live wild, I guess you can change them all, but right now I am just doing it on HTTPS, right? And I probably didn't mention this in the other video, but there's like I think there was like a WebDAV or some other thing. I'm not using that. That's why it's not there. So in case your default thing comes with more and stuff, right? We're only interested in the FTP, the two HTTPs that it has, and then of course the HTTPS. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and save this one. All right, and boom. Okay, so there we go. So I see now that FTP and HTTPS, right, they're using the local address, and I just saved it, so we know we're good there. So now let's go ahead, and now we're going to go ahead and make the change. So before I do that though, I'm going to actually show you guys. So how do we know that the container is operating on the Tailscale network, right? So what we're going to do is you're going to go into your Tailscale side container over here, right? Okay, and then what you're going to do is there's a particular command you're going to execute. The command is netstat tulpin. I'm going to say if that's how you pronounce it correctly, but netstat tulpin, right? So if you see here, I'm going to go ahead and execute this now while we're here. which I also want to let you know up front too. There's also no intuitive way of like managing the ports very well on the container, meaning that if I add 2 or 3 containers to this 2 or 3 regular Docker containers to the Tailscale side container here, that's fine, it'll work, but the only problem you're going to have is going to be port conflictions. And the thing is that, you know, with the way Docker is, the ports, right? You can't specify the ports ahead of time. That has to be within the application itself. So at least with Unraid, the ports, you can't actually pre-make or pre-establish the ports in this particular setup, which you saw in the previous video with CrushFTP when we gave it its own IP address, right? You know, I forgot what the hell the other port was called, but like none of those actually matter, right? We were just able to access directly to the container ports, which were, you know, 443 and 8080. But anyway, so let's go ahead and let us continue now. So we ran that command and we see that we're only listening to default ports here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the container and I am going to now select the Tailscale side container, and then that's it. Oh yeah, then here we go, right? You see, like we didn't specify any of these, right? We were just able to access it straight from HTTPS 8080, right? Which was the actual ports that we know were defaulted in use in the container. But like I said, the container, the actual application in that container is the one that dictates it. So what else we got here? So let's go ahead and hit apply. All right, so this should bring down that container, bring it back up, right? And then boom. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit done. And what we should see is first and foremost that as for network, it shows that it is the Tailscale container, right? Now, if I recall correctly, when this is the case, I believe you can't actually bring this down. So for my auto starting people, right? For those that like to have these containers auto start, you're probably going to want this one to auto start first, and then you know, have the other one, but make sure you establish a delay. I don't know, like 15 seconds or something. Okay, and then that way that'll keep the container from coming up before the Tailscale container is actually up and ready. But anyway, now let's go ahead and get to the actual container here. So let's go ahead and let me do a netstat LSP again, and there you go, right? As you can see, now we got new ports that's automatically being listened to: 9090, 8080, the 21, which you know is the FTP port. You know, so there we go. That's it. You're essentially done, right? I mean, that's really all there's to it. So now, how do we make sure that we can actually access the container, so I can prove to you guys that that indeed worked? Okay, so first and foremost, right, I do have Tailscale on this computer here, right? So it's already on the Tailscale network, and as you can see, I can no longer now connect to this IP address for that container. Okay, I have to now specify either the IP address for the Tailscale container on here plus the port, or you know, the hostname that I have for this, right? Which in this particular case, because I'm only planning on using this one container for this one, or this one Tailscale container for this one application, I already gave it, you know, a particular name, so I'm just going to access it via that. So I'm going to do CrushFTP. Now, if you remember, okay, it did do CrushFTP 8080. So let's see if that works, and that does, right? Now remember, right, we did the other changes just to be on the safe side in case it doesn't, because like I told you guys before, right, like I said, that lookup logic is scary. So like I said, I wouldn't trust it. That's why we left HTTP alone, and we changed the HTTPS that it would so that way, you know, in case for whatever reason the lookup thing went wrong on us, we could still access the container via how we know we established it. So I'm going to go ahead now. Let me just go here real quick, and we're just going to confirm, right, that everything is working. Well, what happened? Let me try that one more time. oops, sorry, right, crush admin, right, and then the default, which is password. And would you look at that? See, for whatever reason, it's not working. So what I'm going to try and do is let us try the HTTPS, right? Because that could be just a security thing, maybe on CrushFTP's part. So let me go here. All right. So I'm already in. All right. And so now I'm going to try it again. So crush admin, right? And then the default. And there we go. See, right? And that's good, right? Because like I said, right, it's always it's always good to be on the cautious side. We saw that it was accepting it with HTTP, or that it came up HTTP, but didn't actually let us log in, but HTTPS did let us log in. So okay, so we're good now. That's it. That's all you needed to do. So just as a recap, right, you should already have the Tailscale side container up and going. I'll even go ahead and click on this. So the reason why in this particular video, why I'm not going to talk about actually bringing this up, is just because, one, I already have a video for how to install a Tailscale side container to begin with, but also two, what I had to show in that video is only because as of right now, there's a weird authentication bug going on, and I don't want to sit there and also mention or like have to show that in this particular video, right? I just want to show you that, that you should, by default, super peasy, easy squeezy, right, have your Tailscale container up, and then all you simply do is just tell the Docker container to just use that container as the network. Okay. And I, like I said, this is me making assumptions here, and that's just because I assume, or better yet, no, actually, let me go back on Docker, right? I assume that the developers, both Unraid and Tailscales themselves, right, probably intended you to be able to do this as easy as possible, right? So easy that you shouldn't even need to look up a video in order to get this up and going. Like I said, right now you probably do because it has that weird authentication bug I go over, but like it's supposed to be as easy as me just adding a container, clicking Tailscale Sidecar Unraid, right, which is the template, switching over to advanced view so that way I could just change the name, give it whatever name I want, right? And then that's it, right? I give a name for the Tailscale container itself, right? That's whatever I'm gonna call it on my actual Tailscale network. And then that's it, right? Everything else is supposed to work by default, and then you hit apply and then you're good. So that's why I'm not going to go over that, because right now that's not entirely the case, and I have a separate video to go over the authentication bug. But once they fix it, it should be like that, so you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, right? So you have your Tailscale side container up. You tell Docker to have this container use the Tailscale container as the network, right? You go in, you make sure that it can use those ports, right? That those ports that we know the container uses are being used or are actually being listened to. That's how we know we have a successful connection. And then that's it, right? Because the Tailscale thing is like real easy, simple, right? They've mastered simplicity in that regard, at least, right? So once we know that it's listening, we know the connection is good, and we're able to go from there. So that's it. All right. And so like with that, that kind of concludes the video. Hope this was helpful. Like I said, it was a real quick, easy way to just get your containers onto the Tailscale network via the Tailscale Sidecar. And, it's very easy. And I showed how to get using CrushFTP, right, as our example here. Right, which inherently already has like some funny business stuff that it has to do. But it was good to show you that because, in case you do, your application, whatever container you have, allows you that flexibility to specify ports. It might be good for you to have the application up first, connect to it, change the ports or whatever, make sure that, you have the ports that you wanted to listen to, right? And then connect it to your Tailscale thing. So that way, especially if you got more than one container, you can avoid port conflicts like that. But again, that's if you have that level of control over the container, right? Or the application in the container. So with that being said, that concludes the video. You guys take care.